All right, what's up, everybody? What's going on? It's so good to see all of you all back with us again. Today, we are in for an incredible, spicy conversation today. This is Callings and Careers, and those of you that have been following us for a while, you already know kind of how we get down. You know what our format is, what our goals are. And our commitment is to have Christ-centered career coaching conversations with you. Our goal is to be able to help you discover your calling and then developing your career. And I say that on the front end of today's call or today's show, because what we're going to deal with today, you're going to be wondering like, okay, how does this tie into careers? But you're going to see very clearly what we're trying to do. And I promise you, Jessica's got some alliteration set up somewhere. She's gonna bless you with some alliteration today. So
I keep one in my back pocket at all times.
Listen, I know you do. Jessica, tell everybody really fast who you are for the new people.
Hey there, happy Wednesday. I'm Jessica Canty. I am your life and career strategist. I love helping melanin millennial women and moms to have phenomenal and productive careers. And so that's why I'm thrilled about this conversation. I like that you said it's spicy because it's spicy here in the DMV, both the political environment and the actual environment outside. It's hot out here. So perfect timing for a spicy conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So you can check Jessica out there. There's her website, jessicacanty.com. She's also on social media at Jessica Canty on most platforms. And of course, I'm Christopher J. Harris to be exact. And I'm the co-host and honored to be able to come with you all every single month as we have these multi-month conversations about your career, that you don't have to turn your faith off to be able to thrive in the workspace, in the workplace. And our commitment is to be able to help you do that and have what we feel like are healthy conversations in that vein. Of course, you can find me there, ChristopherJHarris.com. I'm on social media at CJHarrisONE, and I'm also the co-founder for DiverseChurchJobs.com, where we help people of color in ministry find incredible ministry jobs and ministry opportunities. So what are we talking about today? So we're just a few days removed from what was a very, very newsworthy story, newsworthy event. And there's been lots and lots of discussion and video and endless articles and dialogue and conversations about what is being called the attempted assassination for former President Trump. To be clear, we are not doing this call today, this show today, to take sides on being Democrat or Republican or conservative or liberal. This is not a conversation today of endorsing any political party or political platform. This is a conversation today about how you navigate these very weighty matters and these political minefields in the workspace. That's what this conversation is about today. Jessica alluded to this earlier. She said it's very hot. And it's interesting because Jessica, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I actually did a short pastoral admonition or encouragement to our church Sunday morning, because of course this happened on Saturday. And so it was fresh on everybody's mind Sunday morning. And I was actually traveling, so I wasn't able to actually physically be there. So I had to record this on video. And I just shared with our church that part of our prayer is that we ask God to help turn the political heat down some, right? Because it's hot, man. Like you said, it is hot. It is hot. Tensions are high. Everybody's divided and all of that. And so we felt like we didn't have this planned today. We didn't have this topic planned today. I sent Jessica a message. I think I sent you that message Sunday or maybe Monday and said, hey, what do you think about this? And she was like, absolutely. And she sent me some alliterations in response. But she was in complete agreement that because this is so fresh and it's just July, we still got August, September, October, and then November to come. And it's probably not going to change much. It's probably going to get more intense the closer we get to the election. And so we want you to have some conversation. We want you to have some thought today with us about how to navigate these political minefields and all of that. I did an all call to try to find some human resource professionals. We got a bunch of people that got tagged on a post that I put up asking for suggestions. And a lot of people got tagged, but not everybody was available. Almost everybody that I spoke with that I shared with them the topic, they were like, oh my God, I wish I was available. And their schedules just did not align. But we were able to find an amazing gentleman who happens to also be a member of the church where I serve at. He has a 23-year track record in the military and in governmental service, a 20-plus year career also in human resources, and stories for days of missteps and other things that people have done. So everybody, please welcome to Callings and Careers, Mr. Rico Bain. Rico, what's up, man?
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. So glad that your schedule worked out to allow you to be on with Jessica and I today. And yeah, it's gonna be a great conversation, man. So anything you want to say really fast in terms of your background or who you are that I didn't share already?
No, I mean just that, the way things landed up with my career. Initially, I didn't see it, but just being able to active duty as a civilian working, recruiting, equal employment opportunity, human resources, labor employee relations. So, being able to just have those experiences now has made me a better manager, leader, advisor.
Hmm.
So I just love helping people out and always offering whatever I can to let them put something in their toolbox to help them throughout their careers.
Yeah. Now, Jessica, don't be mad at me for what I'm about to say. Okay, please don't be mad at me. But let me just say that I am glad today, not only that Rico is on with us today, but this is an anomaly because he's a man in human resources, which in human resources, men are actually outnumbered. So the fact that we got a gentleman on in human resources is a blessing because it gives us a little bit of a different perspective. And we probably will have some other ladies on at some point to also hear their perspective and thought on this. So please don't be mad at me, Jessica, for that.
Not at all. I'm actually pleased that he's here because, I mean, just listening to his career, you can already tell that he's got some expertise around what it looks like to have that politics in the workspace, to go from the military to civilian world. Military is nothing but politics. So to have that transition, I'm just excited to be able to learn from his expertise as well.
Yeah. So we are titling this conversation "Politics and Your Profession." That's what we're titling this conversation: "Politics and Your Profession." Let's jump in with this. Let's first of all let's acknowledge the tension of this moment, right? Let's just be honest about that. What are people feeling? Like, let's talk about that for a second. What do y'all think, Jessica? What do you think people are feeling right now?
Well, I think it's important for us to recognize feelings. I mean, I'm a bit biased because I'm a therapist, but I do understand that this decade of politics has just become so very polarizing. It used to be, you can have a difference of opinion, but it's like the exact opposite of opinion. Either you're for me or you're against me. And unfortunately, violence has seeped into the conversation. It's not just about having a political difference. Now we're talking about violence. So I think people are feeling uneasy, unsettled. Some people are, making light of the situation with humor. Some people are making it seem as if it's the end of the world because of it. But there's just so many polarizing thoughts and feelings that can leave people feeling unsettled.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Rico, anything you want to say about that at all?
Yes, I think I will say up front, I think, in my environment, the government, due to a lot of things we've had to deal with in our society, we've now included and started having those uncomfortable conversations in the workplace. And I mean that with a platform from leadership to talk to those of different ranks and demographics and address a lot of these matters because, they see that we can't just come to work and I say beyond the gates of the military bases and don't think that those things impact us. And they do, so.
Yeah, that's one of the first questions we're going to actually unpack a little bit is actually, do these conversations even, are this, should we even be having these conversations in the workplace? But we'll get there in just a moment. I think it's important that we maybe have a conversation right now about like, how do we manage the condition or the state of our own heart and mind? Because like we're in a space now where we're in a 24-hour news cycle. A lot of folks are constantly getting alerts and notifications on their phones. And, I'll be honest and just say um, that there are times I pull back from the news, like altogether. I pull back from the news. I pull back from social media because it feels like it gets overwhelming. And I don't know if that's just me or not, but I like, what's y'all's thoughts on that? What are your reactions to that? Because sometimes it just feels like it's too much.
Absolutely. We do have to be very mindful of how much media we consume, because our nervous system can't handle all of that. It can't
Mhm.
handle the speculation, the repetitive nature of it, and how does this trickle down? How does this affect me? Where it's impacting you even when you're in the grocery store or when you're driving down the road, and so it's like you're inundated with it. There's not really a space where you can kind of hide from it unless you're intentional about disengaging. So I highly encourage a lot of my clients, especially, unfortunately, we live in a time also where there's wars and rumors of wars. It keeps coming up in my sessions. And so it is important for us to be very mindful about how much media we consume around this, because the media will start to impact our mind, and then our mind can impact our heart.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I concur. I think like for me, I'm in a different world, different profession where HR, but I'm still connected to the military, and Department of Defense. So there's our mission in what we do, and the reason why we're here is to defend our country ultimately. So we need those politics. They drive a lot of what we do, our missions. Um, but yet, okay, when do you know when to cut it off and say, okay, we only need to know so much. Who are we at war with? We got strategies and things that we discuss that's classified and not everybody need to know. But then we get down to the bottom line of who you voted for and why, you know, and then that's where it starts to get kind of ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't think I'm presumptuous. I think Jessica would agree with me on this. And feel free, Jessica, to push back or offer different commentary if you have a different angle on this. But our show, our platform, Callings and Careers, is specifically unapologetically for people of faith that work in workspaces, professional lives. Um, I am convinced, a personal opinion, that as a follower of Christ, you should not feel comfortable sitting squarely in either party. That's my conviction. Jessica, you want to react to that really fast before I go further?
Oh, absolutely. I think that as well, because neither party is going to get us, draw us closer to the cross. So sitting in those spaces are not going to draw you closer to the cross. So I'm just all about what's going to keep me and my eyes on the cross. So, and I mean, each party has its own ups and downs and its own perks, and just things we don't want to talk about in decent company. But yeah, neither one is going to draw me to the cross. So just be very careful about being on opposite sides of it.
Yeah, yeah. So I say
Right.
that to say, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rico. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like, y- wow. One of the things I love about being a man of faith and a minority helps me is a lot of times in the military we're taught, or in the work environment we're taught to stay away from certain conversations, or you can and can't say this, and it's like no, that's not the law or the truth. A full truth is how we have those conversations. For instance, it's like they say don't talk about religion, like you can't share your faith. No, you can share your faith and you could talk about Christ like you can sporting events, etc. But when you get a little hostile and try to bump Bible dump people in the workplace and create a hostile work environment, then that's when you don't want to go to the restroom and be like, hey, Jesus, So it's like just monitor and keep those things in control, and I think you'll be okay. And that's about any conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So, our identity, in some ways, a part of this discussion, politics in your profession, the encouragement is that you need to know who you are. Like, and how did you, like, where's your identity? Your identity can't just be primarily first in even your race or ethnicity. Your identity can't be rooted, just in your politics, or your economic status. I'm convinced that your identity needs to be in something that's a lot more stable. And of course, I believe that that's faith. So it should start there, and then everything else feeds out of that. So do we are we suggesting that the political conversation can be had in the workspace? Let's start there. Are we suggesting that these conversations can even be had in the workplace? Are we telling people don't talk about politics at all in the workplace? What are we saying?
Wow, that's a loaded question because I think that we should be able to, but it can go ugly real quick.
Mm,
Um, and that's where I think if you get to know who's around you in your workplace and what drives them, you build relationships. And now I feel like there's always like more questions needed. Meaning you can't just look at people and stereotype and say because you're black, I think you're a Democrat, or you're white, you're a Republican. It's actually be like, hey, well, who did you vote for? If you want to have the discussion and say why, you
mm,
know,
mm,
I think that that's a big difference because now you're looking at your income status, your faith, and so many other things that make a person who they are, and it's not just defined by Democrat or Republican. And I'll say one more thing. For me, being in the military, I tell my age, but I've been around the government for 30 something plus years. And I've always said that presidents come and go,
mm.
but my God is the same. So that's for me and my faith. I got to adjust to whoever's in the seat. Um, and that's just how I normally end it with people. No matter which trying to angle they're trying to sell, I go, hey, I've been through many presidents, but one God. So
Jessica, did you feel that? I know you did. I know you well enough to know you felt that.
Listen, I was sitting still, but in my spirit, I was running around the room when he said it. Amen. Amen. It's so
Listen,
very important. It's so very important. I mean, because like I love the idea of coming back to what the Bible says that He's going to appoint the authority. It's up to us to be obedient and serve and do our work unto the Lord, not unto whatever authority is there, because God is appointing it and He's ultimately in control. And I think it's so important that you said that they come and go, because it is. In 4 years, we'll be having the same conversation. It'll be something else polarizing. And then 4 years later, and then 4 years later, that's just the nature of how our country is set up.
yeah, yeah. So two things I think that are being said. I want to give people handles to the conversation. One, I think you know courageous conversations should be had in the context of relationship. I think when you don't have a relationship of trust with a person, right? If you don't know a person, you start working with this person, or y'all only engage at work, and you don't have any depth, and there's no level of like authentic, deep rooted trust. It's hard to have very nuanced, layered social, political, religious conversations with somebody that you don't know, that you don't have trust with. And so I think that has to be factored in to all of our minds from a wisdom perspective. Because the truth is, let's acknowledge this too. You're grown enough to do whatever you want to do, but that moves us to the second point, and that is you got to count the cost. Like, okay, you're willing to go in on somebody and tell them how ungodly or how bad or how wrong or whatever they are for supporting a particular candidate or a party. And we're dealing with this from every level, right? From the local level to the state level to the national, federal level, et cetera, et cetera. So you can do that. Like, all of us have the right to do that if we want, but there's going to be a cost associated with doing that.
yes.
But I think we got to help people understand, and we'll get to this in a moment about even like what you post on social media and all of that other stuff. But there's a cost, and the question you have to ask is, am I willing to pay the cost? Well, let's talk about this for a moment. What are some of the costs? Rico, you got stories, I know.
Oh wow. I mean, the easiest story is you're working 1 minute, next second you're not. So, accountability.
You got to just put
Um,
that out there, Jessica.
yeah, accountability for what you've said, for what you posted.
Hmm,
And I've seen too many people squirm. Being an investigator, a fact finder, into a lot of those situations. So it's like, oh, say what you just said before, you told your coworker, or wow, it's really not worth it. And there's people that truly make mistakes and they go, oh, I didn't come out right. And it's like, yeah, well, you should have known your audience and well, still explain what you meant by when you said this or that. So um, I'll tell one story. I was new here to the area and hired a guy. And he's like, where you from? What's your background? And I'm like, oh man, here we go. North Carolina, spent some time in New York. And he said, are you a Yankee? And I'm like, what does that mean? That was new to me. I didn't know what was going to come out of his mouth, but that set me up for my time here in Florida. So,
Wow.
very lesson learned. So,
Wow. So did something end up happening with that relationship or that conversation or anything like that? Or
I mean, he ain't come work at my house no more, but I'll wave to him if I see him in it. But it's like that really is. I noticed that was like a really a fear that I've learned that a lot of people here in Florida area um, are concerned with all the northerners move down south, and I'm sure it's packed up to more than that, and probably what I know. Um, but I've always been in open ears, but I think I know why. Florida is so diverse, and here go these northerners with all their money coming down here and buying up our land, etc. And I didn't know I'll say it, the Confederacy was so strong here in Florida.
hmm
So
no, it's so um yeah, there's a whole history of Florida and the Confederacy and the Civil War and all of that. Jessica, you don't know this, but right here, I live in Tampa, and to show you the impact of the Confederacy that's here locally, um, there are two major interstates that, well, three really, but two that I identify that goes through the city of Tampa. One is called I-75, right? I-75, it runs all the way through the state of Florida and goes all the way up north, right? I think you can find I-75 all the way up through like New York, maybe, and some of the other states, up northern. And then you have I-4, which runs the entire length east and west of the state of Florida. Those I-75 and I-4 intersect with each other in Tampa. Okay. On the south side of that intersection between these two interstates is the largest Confederate flag that you've ever seen in your life.
yeah,
It is so when you're coming into the city, the first sign that you see that says "Welcome to Tampa," on the backdrop of that is this Confederate flag that's flying. So this is real stuff, y'all. And then here
right.
you are, Jessica. You live in the DMV, so talk a little bit about the tensions there, because that is the hub. DC is the hub of all of this.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned the cultural environment of that because it is the DMV. I'll speak specifically about the DC version of the DMV. DC is all about political power, who you know, rubbing elbows, and it's very polarizing in DC because we kind of get the idea that this area is liberal, but then they're very it's very distinct. There are other spaces that are more conservative. So very similar to what you were the visual you were painting for me about Florida. I took my daughter and her friends for a vacation to Busch Gardens, which is in Virginia, and saw the Confederate flag. So I wasn't very far from my home, and I was like, "This is a whole nother world, right?" And because it is the seat of the government, DC is, we deal with both local and federal government in that space, and so you can really see how who gets a job, who doesn't get a job. So it's not just office politics, but you're dealing with the nation's politics in our area as well. And unfortunately, very similarly to what you all saw with the Confederate flag, we had to deal with some of the monuments in our area. You know, tourists come to our area and to see all the monuments, but some of those monuments were a monument to an era era where people were treated like chattel and humans weren't treated like humans.
Mm.
So we see those images just getting off the train, or going in and out of our workspaces to go have lunch and things of that nature. And so it is important to know that you don't know who's sitting in front of you. You don't know what their political views are, regardless of where you had lunch with them. So even in the DMV area, it's incredibly prevalent as well.
Yeah, I think it's really easy. I mean, a part of what I think I'm hearing both of you say, and what I'm thinking about is that it's really really easy for us to put people in a box. It's really easy for us to try to typecast people, and it's easy for people to typecast us. Rico mentioned this earlier. You start working with someone, Jessica, and they say, "Oh, you're an African American female," so automatically that means that you fit within certain political ideas, right? And quite candidly, you could be the complete opposite of whatever box they've tried to put you in. Same thing, Rico. Both Rico and I both are African American men, and and here's the reality that comes with that. The reality that comes with that too is people don't know what to do when you break their box. People don't know how to respond
Right.
when you break their box. And so let's shift gears a little bit to then ask the question. Let's talk to the people who don't feel comfortable talking about politics at work, but the conversations are being had. And in some ways, they feel like it's being forced. How do they respond? How do they engage with that? How do they navigate that?
Wow.
I think it's important. I think it's an important question to ask because I think depending on what your agency has, you may have some protections around not having to engage. So I always encourage people to know your policy. I don't know if this is the same in Florida, but I know in the DMV area, they're like right around now. We're probably gonna get an email that comes out that says what you can and can't have in your cubicle, what you can and can't have in your office, what you can participate in, whether or not you're gonna get paid while you're participating in that particular activity, like some type of voter registration or some type of political event. It is important to ask those questions, especially when you are afraid not to engage because it may impact your job. So one, I would say definitely you want to check out, and Rika probably can speak to this even better than I can. You want to know your office policy. And remember that if a person, if your job is solely based on who you ate lunch with and what politics you talked about, that may not be the space that you're going to thrive in. And don't always look to work to have those genuine connections, because some people are just there just to get a paycheck. So, if that means you have lunch by yourself, if that means that you are intentionally removing yourself from conversations, then I highly encourage you to do that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Rico, talk to us a little bit about this from an HR perspective. Go ahead.
Wow. I mean, like one of the things I learned with going from the transition from military to still DoD civilian, with just individuals have rights. So we have a lot of freedoms, but there's still guidance. And like you said, I definitely would encourage people to know their guidance or their policies for their agency on what you can or can't say. But even for us, I know a lot of people know it, but even with the military or the military bases, you can't have certain things on your car. You can't walk around with certain types of clothing or T-shirts or messages. You can't just fly flags. For instance, new guidance come out on what flags you have posted in your work environment or on your vehicle. So all those things are critical, But we got like the military police force that help initially just when you come into the bases or posts or Navy bases, and you'll know and you'll feel that there is a tolerance level for certain things that when you come into the installations.
So, what happens when people violate that, though? I'm sure that there are people
Um,
on either side, because I'm sure from a military perspective, part of that is because I mean, y'all's not direct, but y'all's boss is the commander in chief. So you got to navigate that carefully.
right.
But what
And
happens when people violate that?
I mean, just put it blatantly like termination, barred from that installation. Um, and that's rough to overcome in your career, when definitely, if you're Depends on your life situation. If you're the sole breadwinner, or you're a leader or a manager, and have that flaw on your resume like that, that's hard to overcome um, in your career. When you've been found guilty of something involved with politics and or unlawful discriminatory behavior. So,
So
but
so
yes, it's a cost.
so um let me unpack this for a second. So number one, do you get a dishonorable discharge?
For it depends on what was done. It could lead to that. I mean, normally a lot of times when people are held accountable, it's not just for one act. Um, there's normally multiple things that's found in their careers. To where when they pack those packages up, and you normally would probably need a good attorney to overcome them, because normally that's the thing you find that when people are doing certain things, they hold on to it and they come out in so many ways. And when you start investigating and looking into those matters, you'll find out that the whole workplace, half the workplace, probably know that about them, but
Mm.
no one ever stood up and said anything. So,
Wow.
and that's the sad part. And I think that's why I normally call people out. Um, if they're friends with me on Facebook or social media, and go, hey, you might want to take that down because it could cost you your career.
Mm,
So,
mm.
it's one thing when you sit by, but sometimes our silence can be viewed as concurrence, and that can always be dangerous. So it's like, hey, it might be worth it to speak up and go, hey, no, I ain't have no part of that, or I don't believe in what they were saying.
Wow. Jessica, you're a counselor and a coach, therapist, and all of that. What would you say, or what are you saying to clients and coworkers who are navigating these political landmines? What are you saying to them? What advice are you offering?
Mm-hmm. Well, one, I think it's, a lot of times people want to post things or engage in things, and that's the their calling to say something about it. I always find it interesting when I ask them the question, does that candidate know you're doing that for them? And are they going to make sure that you have your job after you do it?
Right.
It's a good question. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times people are like, and I'm going to post this and you can't take my, da, da, da. Does that candidate know that? And are they
Hmm.
going to make sure you are employed after that? That's one. And the other thing is, I think a lot of times we attribute our value to being informed and educated. And like we mentioned earlier, with this 24-hour news cycle, we indulge ourselves and kind of just soak up all the information that we need and think that that's our only value. So we have to speak up, and that's our voice at that time. So I'm consistently telling clients that this is something that is one element of your life. If it is something that you want to stand up for, it's go beyond the post. What are in what ways are you committed to the cause? Do you want to donate something? Do you want to start something? Do you want to disengage from something? Those are the things that are going to be more valuable for you. So it's not just about what you post or what you click like or what you click share on. What is the value? So, I mean, one of the political things that are really like highly charged, especially with a lot of my clients, is student loan debt. What do you want to do about that? Do you want to pay it forward? Pay somebody else's debt? Like, what are the actual actions you want to do? Because if you're just staying stuck in what the pundits are saying, it's really easy to overwhelm yourself emotionally.
Yeah, I think that whole notion of going beyond the post is really powerful, even as
Yeah.
relates to your own research, right? I think, and I had to do this myself, Jessica. Rico, I made a list of what I supported, or even so. Like my wife will tell you, um, my daughter, I did it for her the first time that after she turned 18 and could start voting. I got a couple other family members, two or three other family members that also reach out to me in this way because they know that I'm going to be as objective as I can about the facts, not like all this political innuendo. And I
Right.
love the fact that you introduced the word pundits. All the pundits are talking. I don't buy into theories or ideas just because they're trending. Let me do my research. Let's see what the facts are, and I write those things down. If a candidate has a track record for a certain thing, but then they're saying, but I don't do this. Well, wait a minute. I did my research, and there's 15 examples of you doing this, but now you're
Right.
saying this. There's a disconnect, right? And I write that down. especially like in local elections. I am mystified at how disengaged people are on the local level. I'm completely like, you have major cities in America, where a school board race may only have 5 or 6,000 people vote in it, when there's like 200, 300, 400, 500,000 people in that city. I'm like, why aren't y'all voting? Because
Right.
who was it that said, FDR said all politics is local? That's true. Like, all of this
Yeah.
starts at the local level. And so, I think that's important. One of the things that you all said, you didn't say these in these words, but I think this is a practical step, a practical tip that our listeners and viewers can take, and that is, you really have to evaluate, like, how diverse is your own personal life, right?
Yeah.
Because if everybody in your life thinks like you might end up in an echo chamber where your viewpoint, your understanding of an issue, your ideas around the issue become very, very skewed. And I tell you what, from a credibility standpoint, with those that you work with, you lose all kind of credibility when you have a strong opinion about something and you find out you don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. You know what's man, something so simple that I think when the way we learn um by what we see, a lot of times a lot of us learn by what we see. And so for me, for social media, immediately if I want to friend someone or they want to friend me, and I go, wow, why does everybody that you're friends with look just like you? Like
Mm,
it makes my mind just start racing and say, I don't know. Like, and I hope that I don't know if I'm the one that thinks that, but I think that says a lot about you, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. When you look at my timeline, like, if I were to give y'all my login for my timeline, when stuff politically happens, I have a timeline full of very divergent opinions. It's
yeah.
like, literally, I have uh Fox News prognosticators and I have CNN prognosticators that are both, like, viscerally going in with something. Like, Saturday, I was traveling Saturday, so literally, and this is literally what was happening. I'm on a flight, and I got Wi-Fi. So a text comes in. My wife texts me and says, "Is does your flight have TVs on it? Does your flight have live TVs?" And I said, "Yes." What's happening? She said, "Turn it on." Right. So I turn it on, and literally, it's like, breaking news: assassination attempt, President Trump, former President Trump. So I'm like, oh, whoa. And as I'm turning my TV on to look at this, all of a sudden you see everybody else, they must be getting same text messages because they're starting to turn their TVs on. And it was interesting because I'm watching and I'm looking at who's turning on to which network, because every network had a different angle and different commentary,
Mhm.
even a different byline on the bottom. So I tried to go to sort of a neutral news network. I didn't go to Fox. I didn't go to CNN. Tried to go sort of a one in the middle. So I let me just, what's happening? First of all, we were in the air, so I didn't know, like, did he get hit? Is he dead? Is he alive? I had no idea. But then Saturday night, as I get to the hotel and get settled, and now I'm kind of just trying to catch up on what's happening, what's going on. I'm saying, man, this is really interesting that on my timeline, I've got some people that are already saying this. We don't even have all the facts yet, but they're already
Right.
saying this. And then I got other people on the other end of the spectrum that are already saying this. And I said, you know what? I'm going to shut this down, and I'm going to look at this in the morning when there's some more facts, because I had to preach the next morning. And so I think, even in our workspaces, how do we create, Jessica? How do we create relationship across difference? How do we engage across difference?
Mm. Well, first of all, we have to be very careful. I think both of you are alluding to the fact that we do have biases and we have to be intentional about not operating in our blind spots. That's one. Two, don't allow someone's political views to color who they are as an entire person, an entire being. So when the moment you find out, oh, I thought she was a Democrat, come to find out she's a Republican. Or I thought he was a Republican because he did this, this is the way he dresses, or things like that. So like you were saying, the box that we put
Right.
ourselves in, or we box that we put other people in, it's to make the world seem safer for us. Like if you just fit neatly in this box, I know how to work with you, I know how to operate with you. But if this has been your work buddy for the last 20 years and all of a sudden you found out he voted for a different candidate than what you would vote for, I don't think that's worth shutting down the friendship with. So are you allowing just someone's political views to shut down a relationship, or is it expanding your idea of what someone like that would be like? So if you think all Republicans are conservative and don't like a particular type of group of people, or all liberals or all Democrats are a certain type of people that don't only operate a certain way, are you willing to allow that to be a space where you're now expanding your knowledge of what that looks like? Are you okay with talking with someone who doesn't vote? Because I think, right now we're talking about both sides of those spaces, but what about people that don't vote? What about the people who feel like we should have more than a two-party system? So are you willing to be a little bit more open about yourself, where your biases that are showing when someone says something, your blind spots that are showing? And are you expanding your view of how humans operate,
Right.
not just in the political space?
That's so good. That's so good. Rico, anything you want to add to that at
You,
all?
I felt a little conviction because I once
Jessica has that effect on people. You wait till she ain't done yet. We still got about 12 more
well,
minutes. She get ready to
I
hit you with
was
the alliteration, and you're gonna be like, you know what?
okay. So I did get to a point where I did want to start deleting friends, and it happens. But I just one person, I just was like, man, I was like, I think I deleted one. I might have friended them back. But, I said, what? It's not worth it. I've been knowing this person longer than that. So I reached out to him and was like, hey, what did you mean by this on your post? And, it's like, let's just talk issues, and a certain agenda. Like, don't come at me with a party, because it's like, it's more than a party to me. Like, let's just talk a specific topic. Um, because I hope that you're not defined by just one topic, or a party. So I had to learn to say, that's how you're going to keep your friend list not looking like you sometimes, by, just getting to know people and take those chances. And I did. I just took the chance and said, hey, I've been knowing you for some years. And I didn't think that person was that shallow. So now all of a sudden with one post, I was like, it's not worth it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Let's do this, y'all. We got a few minutes left. We talked a little bit about, and Jessica made the recommendation. Rico talked about some specific examples of it. Jessica made the recommendation that you should really discover what some of the policies are, some of the specific, instructions that your company has in place, documented about what's permissible, what's not permissible. Um, that's the legal side of this. Let's talk about the wisdom side of this. Because just because something is legal or you have the right to do something
right.
doesn't always mean it's wise to do. Jessica, let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about, posting, reacting, engaging on the chat or online in the comment section, or DMing strangers, or going live. Let's talk about the wisdom of that for a moment, Jessica.
Mm-hmm. Are you allowing wisdom in? I think that's the question. Are you allowing wisdom in before you hit that post? Are you allowing wisdom in before you send that DM? And so, just like was mentioned earlier, that Rico mentioned earlier, that presidents come and go, your jobs are going to come and go, especially
Right.
if you are not using wisdom before you post and before you click like and click share. And I think some people are like, well, this is my First Amendment right, and I can post this if I want to. Yeah, but you don't know if this is where you're going to be employed for forever. You might want to go someplace else, and that may mess up a bridge or burn a bridge over there. You don't know what other endeavors you're going to want to pursue. And again, if you're not doing any action behind it, is it really worth it? So, like, are you
Right.
promoting a cause that okay, I want children to be educated. And so I think this candidate will help with this education. But here's the work I'm going to do to make sure the children are educated. If it's nothing but, like I said, just clicking like and clicking share, is it worth it? I think that's the wise thing. Am I doing something wise? Am I slowing down enough for the Holy Spirit to say, no, you know better than that. Don't you dare. Don't it's time to even stop following that person or stop
Right.
following that page, because it is giving you ideas that you probably weren't generating for yourself, and it's not allowing wisdom to catch up with you.
Right. And Jessica, wow. I think that's to as well. And I think that for me, I first say, what does this say about me? Because my faith comes before my job. So my relationship with the Lord comes before I'm worrying about the job. So I wonder first, like, okay, Rico, is that a good representation of a believer in Christ? You know, and we'll go from there. But and on the legal side and wisdom, people, you worry about losing your job, but what about not getting promoted or finding another job? Because now that social media can be utilized, in the recruitment process.
Yeah, because
So
once it's on social media, it lives. And we've
yeah,
used the examples, of being fired, but in some cases, you will actually be on the job, but you created a hostile uh, relationship with people unnecessarily.
yes,
You created a dichotomy by which now everybody's side eyeing you because you had to get it off your chest. I
right,
think there's some truth to still making the statement or at least asking the questions. Jessica introduced the Holy Spirit. She ain't gonna admit it, but before we get done with however long the Lord lets us do callings and careers, I'm gonna convince her to confess that she's an undercover Pentecostal preacher. She ain't gonna say it right now, but I promise you she's gonna say it before it's done. But listen, what we need to think about is that adage, those significant questions before you say something, before you post something. Is it true? Is what you're about to share true? Is it helpful? Right? Is it like what's going to be what do you gain from saying this? And then thirdly, this is really important, is it kind? Like the people on the other end of this issue that you're getting ready to speak about, can you then stand up and say, but I'm praying for you? Because if you like tear them down, but then offer to pray for them, I don't want your prayers. Right? Because that's not
right.
that's not that's not that's not helpful. Any reaction to that really fast before I move on? We have this is amazing.
I like that you're asking those questions, because again, it's so very easy to click like or to click share or like to post something that we don't slow down and ask those questions. And for some of us, we don't realize, yeah, it is the political season, but sometimes we just want attention. And so I think you should get attention in another way.
Mm,
Just get attention another way. There's another way to get a follower. There's another way to have lively conversations, lively debate, and build community rather than doing something divisive.
Yeah,
right.
that's
And
true.
even in that, I feel that way about certain people, and I want to put it on their post, but I'm like, that's not going to help build a relationship.
Yeah.
So
So we
I
got to
probably had.
go ahead, Rico. I'm
Nope,
sorry.
I'm good. I'll leave that alone.
So we got a few more minutes. Uh, let's all three of us talk for a few minutes about how does somebody's watching this and you know what they're like, man, I needed to hear this today. I need to pivot or adjust how I've been in engaging these thorny issues, or even how I need to adjust my mindset as we head closer towards the election, because it's only going to get more intense as the election comes closer. How do we recommend that a person recovers if they've already kind of put their foot in their mouth, if they already made their political position and political stance known, and they can care less about what their bosses or their coworkers or their regional vice presidents or the CEO or the CFO or the COO or whoever they can care less. How do we help them recover? What advice, what wisdom, what recommendations will we offer to them? Rico, I'll let you go first on this, and then Jessica, you want
Oh,
to.
okay. I think expression I heard before is like it's okay to eat crow.
Mm,
It don't taste so good. I've never tried it, but I think it's okay to just find out that you were in error. It's okay to go back to people And you know, a lot of times, a lot of cases I've had from wisdom and experiences, a lot of people say, I was just looking for this person to tell me they were sorry. And you
Mm,
know, it's like that's something where you don't know if they meant it or not. But sometimes apologizing can go a long way, and clarifying to a person like, hey, or I said this the other day, or I did this, and I don't like how it made me feel afterwards, you
mm,
know,
mm,
or, you know, I felt convicted about it, and going to people and clearing those things up, because you don't want to find out, like, if you truly can care about people, that, hey, that they'll tell you 3 years later that, you know, 3 years ago when I first met you, you said this, and I ain't felt good about you since then. It's like, whoa, that would hurt. And
mm,
especially if you're a believer,
mm.
to find out that you're the meanest Christian that somebody ever met. You
Wow.
know.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I typed on the screen there. We put on the screen the power of an apology because that's true. Sometimes, man, an apology can change the whole game. So that's
Yeah.
good, Rico. That's good. Jessica, go ahead.
Can't leave without an alliteration. I think it's an audit, admit, and adjust. Audit, like think about all the groups that you are following. Think about when you go to church on Sunday morning, do people look just like you, or is there a mixture? Are you sitting next to people that look just like you? Make an audit of that as well. Look at your 5 major connections. And if all those connections look exactly like you, it's time to take a step outside of that bubble because that will help you to see the world from a different person's perspective. So that's your audit. Admit, I think, is right in line with what Rico was saying. It's like admit that you may have posted something that wasn't kind. You may have said something, engaged in conversations, laughed at a joke that just was not appropriate, and then adjust. What are you going to do completely different? So if that means I have to take a 30-day social media fast so that I can see what ideas are really mine, if that means that I have to, be careful with the podcast I listen to, whatever the media is, that might be adjusting. It might be also the activities I do on the weekend. I'm going to do with a different group of people because that's going to make me see that the world is more than just the perspective that I have on a day in and day basis, day in and day out basis. It's more than just that 5 block radius that I tend to spend my life with. So I would say audit, admit, and adjust.
Told y'all. Told
Mhm.
y'all she was gonna hit y'all with that alliteration.
Right.
Audit, admit, and adjust. I think that's good, Jessica. And I won't say too much more beyond what you just shared because I think that's a good landing place. Here's what I will say that we haven't said in some ways, and I want to say this way. I'm going to actually borrow a quote from a great spiritual leader. He's actually in the Virginia area, pastors a small church, but is just wise and genuine and loving. Bishop Nathaniel Gomillion. He probably is not even watching this, but because it's not necessarily in his world, but he says very often, and I completely agree with it and embrace it, and that is that we all have to answer for our influence. We all have to answer for our influence. And when I think about that, you think about who you might be influencing spiritually, because all of us that claim the name of Christ or that say that we're people of faith, we represent the Bible and God to a lot of people. Our children or our family members, we represent, we have influence with them. Um, People like Jessica, who has, social media following. I have a pretty stable, I won't say large social media following. That there are people that actually they value what we say, they value what we post.
Mhm.
We have to answer for that. And when we talk about answering for our influence politically, I really think that it is worth us slowing down, thinking about not just reacting to the news or to the most trending thing or the hot topic, but man, what is the best and healthiest way for us to respond to this that honors people first, that helps us to think about this long term? Well, we may be, part of the adjusting is that we're asking more questions than we're making statements. Maybe we put on the hat. The adjustment is that we are sitting in the seat of a learner rather than a spokesperson. And so I think that's a good place to maybe end the discussion today. Our goal today was to simply raise the point of getting people to kind of pause for a second and think about how are you engaging in the workspace? Are you doing it in a way that is healthy, that is wise? Are you doing it in a way that is emotionally healthy? We didn't deal with this deeply. Jessica, we might have to come back and talk about this because I'd love to hear you unpack some more of how do we maintain our mental and emotional sanity in a very hot political environment. That's something that seems like it's right down your alley. So, Rico, we're thankful that you were able to jump in today, man, and offer
Glad
some,
I could be here. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
our perspective. So let me do this. I'm going to give you some closing space for closing comments and remarks, and then I'll toss it to Jessica and let her give us some closing remarks as well.
I'll just say, it's an honor to be here. Always willing to try to lend what has been invested in me and make a difference. Um, but I just want to encourage everybody, like you said, like first to learn all the guidance and policies in the workplace. Don't let the work alone define you. Don't be afraid to, um, witness or share your faith because somebody out there wants you to probably share. Um, and just remember, everything that you do and say, somebody's watching. Um, and, you know, it's okay to apologize um, and get things right with those in your environment. So, but other than that, I'm really honored to be here.
Awesome, man. We're thankful to have you here and blessing to have you on. Jessica?
Thank you so much, Rico, for lending your expertise to this space. And you can do it. Hit the rewind button, get a piece of paper, a pen, and a pile, and you can do it. I think we dropped a lot of wisdom today. That I think is like to Christopher's point, this is going to carry us into election and after election because I don't think it's even going to stop then. Regardless of who gets elected, it's still going to be very polarizing, regardless of who gets elected. And so I think it's important that you play this before you go into the workspace and after you go into the workspace, just to kind of digest of what's happening in your specific career. But you can do it. You can do it well.
Yeah. We've I don't know that we've ended a show like this before, but I'm gonna end like this, Jessica. I wanna just read a few scriptures, mostly from the book of Proverbs, that I think just offer some insight that speaks to not just this topic, politics in your profession, but also just the season that we're in. And we'll just let these words of wisdom speak to you in a way that may be helpful for you. I'm just going to read a few of them. Um, Proverbs 12 and 18 says, "There is one whose rash words are like sword thrust, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." The tongue of the wise brings healing. Proverbs 16 and 24 says, "Gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body." Proverbs 15 and 1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, anger, but harsh words stirs up anger." I love this one. Proverbs 21 and 23 says, "Whoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble." And then here's the final one. For the people that think that this has nothing to do with religion. Actually, I can give you two more. James 1 and 26. This is actually a New Testament verse, not in Proverbs. We're going to come back to Proverbs in there. But it says, "If anyone thinks he is religious but does not keep his tongue, he deceives his heart, and that person's religion is worthless." Wow. Here's the
Yeah.
final one. Proverbs 13 and 3. "Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin." Part of what we're saying to you, y'all, is be wise with your words. Be wise with what you post. You don't just represent yourself, you represent the kingdom of God in the workspace. You have an opinion, doesn't mean you always have to share it.
Right.
And as we've all said, and as we've all offered, Jessica gave you encouragement. You can do this. You can figure this out. You can, what is it? You can audit. You can admit. You can adjust. You can audit. You can admit. You can adjust. You can do this. And so we leave you with the encouragement. You got to answer for your influence. And for some of you, Rico said something really powerful. Some of you may need to go back and apologize to some people today. Let's figure this out. And as much as it's possible with us, let's live at peace with all people. All right. Have an amazing day, everybody. This was Callings and Careers. Thank y'all so very much for being on. This is my co-host, Jessica Canty. You can find her at Jessica Canty, no E, it's a Y.com. And of course, you can find me at ChristopherJHarris.com as well. We'll see y'all the next time. Have an amazing day, everybody.
Yes.